Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to This Is Now. We begin today with a farewell. The nation is honoring the life of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. She was the wife of our nation's 39th president, Jimmy Carter, who remains in hospice care. Her casket departed a medical center in Americus Monday morning, carried by honorary pallbearers that were members of her Secret Service protection detail. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the H&N Digital Center. Carter died in her home in Plains, Georgia on November 19th. She was 96 years old. For more on this, here's Skylar Henry.
Past and present members of the Carter's Secret Service detail carried Rosalynn Carter's casket and flanked the hearse as it left a medical center near Plains, Georgia. Family members followed to the Georgia Southwestern State University Health and Human Sciences complex named for Mrs. Carter. They laid twin wreaths in her honor, and crowds gathered to watch the motorcade go by. This is the first of 3 days of remembrance events for the former First Lady, who died last week at the age of 96.
I just thank you especially for the life of Rosalynn Carter and what she means to each and every single one of us.
The Carter's niece prayed for the former First Lady at the Carter's beloved Maranatha Baptist Church on Sunday.
Mourners and visitors have been flocking here to the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum here in Atlanta. The former First Lady's body will lie in repose through this evening.
Well, she was wonderful. She always remembered to talk about my son.
Meredith Evans is the director here and got to know Mrs. Carter personally.
For me, this is a day of really considering and thinking about all that she's done and what she personally may mean to you or to me.
The public is invited to pay respects through the evening. A memorial service is set for Tuesday. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Atlanta.
Turning now to local news, Honolulu police have opened multiple investigations following a string of crimes over the weekend. The first is an attempted murder at Mauna Lahi Beach Park on Farrington Highway. Police say it happened around 1:30 Sunday morning. We're told two people were allegedly stabbed at the beach, one a 16-year-old boy and a 21-year-old woman. Police say the victims were at the beach with a group of friends when an altercation broke out between them and a homeless man and woman. The two were taken to the hospital where they are now listed in stable condition. It's the latest in a rash of violent crimes on Oahu's west side. HPD also opened an attempted murder investigation after a 19-year-old was stabbed nearly half a dozen times last weekend at Kapolei Skate Park.
To be honest, I'm in disbelief right now because it seems like this is happening every week. I mean, let's be honest here. If this were in Kahala, this would never be happening. The criminals know that we don't have an active police station here, so it's going to take the Kapolei station 4-6 minutes to get out here. A lot can happen in 4 to 6 minutes.
We've reached out to HPD for more information on the suspects, and we'll be sure to pass it along once we get it. In Kailua, police arrested a man after he allegedly pulled a gun outside of a Foodland. Sources say it appears to have been an attempt to break up a fight. Witnesses add it all started when a man got into another fight with a security guard, and that's when the suspect is accused of pointing a gun at the pair and telling them to knock it off. The 28-year-old now faces a terroristic threatening charge. And in Waikiki, police are also investigating after a 68-year-old man was reportedly robbed at knife point inside a Waikiki hotel. Records show that this happened just before 11 Friday night in the lobby at the Princess Kaiulani. We're told the victim was visiting from Japan. At last check, no arrests have been made. We've reached out to the hotel, but they were unable to comment. Behind bars today is a 29-year-old man after he allegedly busted the windows out of more than a dozen vehicles at Cutter Ford, Aiea. We're told the showroom door was also damaged. Police were called to the dealership around 2:30 yesterday morning. Now, records show officers found the suspect still roaming the property. The man is now facing a felony criminal property damage charge. Happening later this afternoon, the U.S. Navy will provide an update on salvage operations of the P-8A Poseidon that's still in Kaneohe Bay. The military aircraft overshot the runway on Monday and landed in the water. That's where it's currently sitting on a reef. A salvage team arrived last week along with military investigators to look into what exactly caused the crash. The update will start at 2 p.m. and we will be carrying it live on your HNN digital platforms. A White House official confirmed today that Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend the ceasefire another 2 days. The announcement came on the final day of the initial 4-day truce in which Hamas released a number of hostages. Israel's military says the Red Cross confirmed that 11 hostages were released today. Nicole Skanga reports from the White House.
8-year-old Ella El-Kayam and her 15-year-old sister Daphna embraced their mother Sunday for the first time since Hamas took them captive 51 days ago and killed their father. But Israel says another recently released hostage, 84-year-old Elma Evraham, is in critical condition after being deprived of her medicine for 7 weeks.
Right now, she's struggling for her life.
Hamas also released 4-year-old American-Israeli girl Abigail Moradon, whose parents were also killed in the October 7th attacks.
I don't know if she knows that she had no more father and mother.
The White House says it welcomes the 2-day extension of the humanitarian pause in Gaza, in which Hamas has agreed to release another 20 women and children.
We would, of course, hope to see the pause extended further, and that will depend upon Hamas continuing to release hostages.
In the West Bank, Palestinians cheered as Palestinian prisoners returned home. As part of the ceasefire deal, Israel has released more than 100 Palestinian women and teenagers detained in Israeli jails before the war started. The truce has enabled the United Nations to deliver more desperately needed food, water, and medicine to Gaza, although officials say it is still not even close to the amount of humanitarian aid needed in the war-torn territory. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, the White House.
In news overnight, 3 U.S. college students of Palestinian descent were shot in Burlington, Vermont. Now, police are investigating this as a possible hate crime, with the suspect now behind bars. NBC's George Solis has the latest.
This morning, an arrest in Burlington, Vermont, after 3 college students were shot and seriously wounded Saturday night. 2 of the victims are Palestinian American, while the 3rd Palestinian student is a legal U.S. resident. Police say Jason Eaton, a 48-year-old man who lives in an apartment building next to the crime scene, is responsible for the shootings. Burlington police say the victims, identified by family members as Hisham Mawartani, Kinan Abdulhamid, and Tassin Ahmed, were in town for Thanksgiving and were leaving a relative's home near the University of Vermont campus on Saturday when their group was confronted by a man they initially described as a white male with a handgun who shot at least 4 times without saying a word.
This has shaken us as a community.
Authorities say 2 of the victims were wearing keffiyehs, a traditional Palestinian scarf, and were speaking Arabic, according to the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee. Some fear the crime may have been motivated by hate triggered by the Israel-Hamas war.
They were wearing the keffiyeh, the traditional Palestinian scarf, and they were not robbed, they were not held up. This was a targeted shooting.
Though it happened near the University of Vermont, the victims don't appear to have a direct connection to the school. Awartani is a student at Brown University, Abdulhamid at Haverford College, and Ahmed at Trinity College. All 3 are also graduates of the Ramallah Friends School in the West Bank.
We are afraid that it is most likely a crime against Palestinians.
In a joint statement, their family members said in part, they are devastated by the horrific news that our children were targeted and shot.
Back here in the islands, experts say Hawaii's housing crisis isn't just about construction. Public services, schools, and commutes all need to be factored in when planning for communities. A Hawaii housing delegation saw the potential of transit-oriented development on a recent trip to Asia. Joining them was our very own Emily Cristobal, who filed this report.
Singapore and Hong Kong are bustling megacities, both smaller in square footage than Oahu, but with 5 to 7 times the population. That population density means public transportation is a must for many. And when you look at how affordable housing is built, it shows. Fast, efficient, and convenient. Every day, millions of people in Singapore and Hong Kong make their way to metro stations to get to work, school, or to do daily errands. In most places, the closest station or bus stop is only a short walk away from a housing complex. Sometimes the housing is built right on top of rail lines.
They're making sure that where their housing is, they have all those shops, they have all those rail lines. It's very methodical. It's planning at its best.
Maui lawmaker Troy Hashimoto was among those who traveled to Asia recently as part of a delegation focused on seeking out new solutions to Hawaii's housing crisis. He says Oahu's rail line isn't bursting with riders yet, but it could be with the right planning.
When we are looking to push Hawaii to kind of rethink how our future housing looks like, I think that is where we can take a lot of inspiration from.
In Hong Kong, for example, an underground network of air-conditioned malls, gathering places, and walkways can take you from one station to the next without ever having to step outdoors.
That is really the gold standard in Hong Kong. But we can start here in Honolulu, and we're starting to see little bits and pieces of it.
Bits and pieces, but not projects at the size and scale that Hawaii needs to address its shortage of affordable housing. For that, State Senator Stanley Chang says Hawaii needs an all-of-government effort, the public sector partnering with private developers to get new projects off the ground.
I think the current rail alignment as we have it now is more of a bare bones skeleton type, but that means that we have the ability to start plugging things into it.
The idea of building communities near major transportation hubs isn't new in Hawaii, but transit-oriented development has largely been more talk than action. But this summer, a milestone. Construction kicked off on an 18-story affordable housing project in Halawa, just a 10-minute walk from the rail line. Lawmakers say projects like that are the beginning, and they point out one of the big ways the state can help is by providing land for affordable housing as part of long-term leases.
Now that the rail is already here, I think it's getting easier for people to see, oh yeah, I could live right by the station, walk to the station, and then get on the train to get to UH, or to get on the train to go to an office job downtown, or a job in Waikiki. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it is definitely coming.
Harrison Rue worked as a city's transit-oriented development manager for years and is now working for the state on their plans. He says efforts to develop key areas of East Kapolei, Waipahu, Pearl Ridge, and Iwilei near the rail are already in the works.
Even if folks on Oahu don't particularly, some people are strong rail proponents, some people could take it or leave it. But everybody seems to want neighborhood improvements, affordable housing, connected streetscapes. So when the plans are built on what people want, we've not had much pushback about the actual density, taller buildings, as long as they're addressing stuff on the ground that matters.
There are also efforts underway to look at transit-oriented development on the neighbor islands, including new projects on bus routes or within walking distances to key services. To learn more about the state's transit-focused housing projects, scan the QR code on your screen to listen to extended interviews and to read more about this story. This is Emily Cristobal for Hawaii News Now.
While out and about this holiday season shopping for the perfect gift, some businesses are saying, hey, don't forget about us. And of course, we're talking about local restaurants. It's so important to support your local eateries. Our Casey Lund has more.
Aloha from International Marketplace here at Skybox, one of the two restaurants owned by Alan Farinas, and we thank him for having us here today. We'll share what he has to say about why you should support local eateries. But first, I want to talk to Cheryl Matsuoka, who's with us, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Restaurant Association. Tell me a little bit about the fact that right now is really the best time to support some of our favorite local restaurants.
Yes, we really need the community to support our local restaurants by buying a holiday gift card for their family, for their friends, or even their employees and clients. We really need to support the restaurants right now. As you know, cost of goods have gone up and sales is down.
And, we have been covering the restaurant industry over the pandemic. You and I have been talking about this for a while. They've made it through those really difficult years, but there's still a lot of challenges. As you mentioned, the cost of goods. There's also a challenge hiring people, and that's going to get even more difficult. Well, not difficult, but there's going to be another challenge coming at the beginning of the year, correct?
Correct. Right now we are in a worker shortage, and Currently, minimum wage is $12 an hour, which is going to go up in January. Many of the businesses and restaurants are bracing for that increase to $14 an hour.
I also want to talk a little bit about how the Restaurant Association has worked to support local restaurants through the restaurant card that happened during the pandemic, but also something pretty special that is ending at the beginning of December, correct? But it's been successful and it's helping some of the Maui businesses as well.
Yes, it's called Restaurant Day. So please go to our website, hawaiirestaurant.org, and on it is a list of all the restaurants for December 5th, which is the first Tuesday of the month for the year. They're going to give back money to the Maui businesses and restaurants.
And tell me a little bit about how many of those businesses were impacted by the wildfire.
Restaurants alone, 72 to be exact, were actually, affected by the Maui wildfires that we're trying to support every day.
Yeah, and get those folks back on their feet, their employees. There's so much work that still needs to happen. And again, the restaurants here on Oahu throughout the state really need your support. So if you haven't gotten that gift for that special somebody yet or forgot, a restaurant gift card might be the ticket. Reporting in Waikiki, I'm Casey Lund. For now, we'll send things back to you.
Thank you so much, Casey. I want to pass along a first alert heads up from our weather team. Our weather team has just decided to issue a first alert weather day for Tuesday. This is initially going to include the island of Kauai and may possibly be expanded to Oahu. This is because of a kona low that is developing to the west of the state, which will likely bring flooding rain and severe weather conditions to parts of the island tomorrow. Coming up after this short break, our Guy Hoggy will have more on this. But for now, let's give you a live look out at the White House. They are decked out for the holidays. Once again, stay tuned for the latest on the weather conditions right after this short break.
How's it on this Monday? We're tracking some severe weather that's on the way. There's a developing kona low storm off to the northwest of us. As it gets closer, it's going to start to increase the clouds and the rainfall and trigger some light winds as well. So flood potential, we're talking from tomorrow all the way through Friday, mainly for Kauai and Oahu in the onset of it. And then it's going to, that flood threat drifts down the island chain by the middle of the week through Friday. And the winds will be changing as well. As that kona low gets gets closer, it's going to cut off these trade winds, which will be with us today at moderate speeds. So Kona winds due by tomorrow. And that means with the light winds, the rain's going to be lingering around. That'll allow for higher rainfall totals with more flood potential. Again, that's starting tomorrow. So for today, it is going to be a little cloudy. It's going to be a little wet today. Not a lot of rain expected today, as most of the rainfall will be on the light side. And leeward sides aren't going to pick up a lot. Most of the showers will favor windward and Mauka areas. The large surf that rolled in for the last several days is on the way down. All the high surf alerts have been canceled. We still got some pretty good sized waves today, and with those light trade winds, conditions will be very good. Keep in mind, though, there still might be some brown water from the overnight rainfall, and there's not a lot happening for south or east shores. So again, get ready for wet weather. We're putting up a first alert for tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, especially for Kauai and Oahu. And then by Wednesday and Thursday, that flood threat moves down the island chain for the rest of the state. Slowly, things are expected to dry up starting on Friday going into the weekend, but there still might be some spots of heavy rain.
Thank you so much, Guy, for keeping an eye on all of the first alerts. We turn now to an update in high school sports. Congratulations to the HHSAA Football State Championships, Kahuku. They beat the Mililani Trojans 21-19 this weekend, winning the Red Raiders' third straight Open Division state title. Diesel Kamoku's 86-yard punt return in the closing minutes sealed the deal for the Red Raiders. This is the first time in tournament history that two OIA teams faced off in the state championship game. And it was a little bit of revenge for Kahuku after Mililani beat them to win the OIA title just a few weeks ago. As for the other matchups, Kauai's Waimea Menehune beat out Kamehameha Maui for the Division II crown. The boys in Waimea Blue ran for 271 yards in a 31-28 victory. Waimea took the trophy back home to Kauai, and this is now their second title in a row. And Waipa, who won their second title in school history, beating out Konawaina for the Division I title. Sophomore Elijah Mendoza threw for 415 yards and 4 touchdowns. The final score there, 53-28 Marauders. In news from the feeds, if you have a Google account that you haven't checked in years, here's your warning, it might be getting wiped this week. Starting on Friday, Google is moving ahead with its plan to delete accounts that have been inactive for at least 2 years. This new policy was announced back in May with the hopes of addressing security risks. The company says that older accounts are more likely to rely on recycled passwords and less likely to employ up-to-date security measures like two-step verification. Those accounts were far more vulnerable to issues like phishing, hacking, and spam. The first phase will delete accounts that were created and never revisited. There are some exceptions, such as accounts with YouTube channels, remaining balances on gift cards, or those that are active on a platform like the Google Play Store. To save your account, all you need to do is simply log in at least once every 2 years. Of course, today is Cyber Monday, which means shoppers can scoop up some extra deals if shopping on Black Friday wasn't satisfactory enough. For more on this, let's turn things over to Heidi Wigdahl.
It's that time of year, bringing in the holiday season.
Are you paying cash or card?
And at places like Mall of America, ringing up at the registers.
I'm more of an online shopper, so I was shocked when we saw a lot of the 30-50% off, which is kind of why we stuck around today.
Every retailer today tries to coordinate what they do online or what they do offline.
George John, professor of marketing at U of M's Carlson School of Management, says even so, Cyber Monday is still a draw.
Everybody tends to look at what happened on Black Friday and start adjusting the sales machine to make up for it. It's a little bit like airline pricing.
According to Adobe Analytics, Black Friday shoppers set an online spending record, with revenue up 7.5% from last year. The National Retail Federation's holiday spending forecast expects sales overall to increase between 3 to 4% over 2022. But that's not adjusted for inflation.
It's roughly equal to inflation. So yes, that's a slowdown from prior years. But prior years are also a kind of a snapback from COVID.
Professor John says shoppers can use price tracking sites to check out certain items. But for the best deals on Cyber Monday,
if you look at the research, it's totally unpredictable. So what should one do? I always tell my students and anybody who wants to listen to me, just search for the things you want. And if you think the price is right and you're not overstretched, go ahead and buy it, but don't look back.
Kelsey Bitterman says while they're shopping for relatives, as a family, they're choosing for more experiences. As far as Cyber Monday,
we got a lot more today than I was anticipating, so we'll see. We'll see what I have holes to fill.
Time to bring you some good news now. And if Cyber Monday shopping wasn't enough, we want to go ahead and take you to that White House to continue the holiday festive joy. Take a look at this. This is the decked out White House. Absolutely beautiful. They make it so nice every single year. This year's theme, the First Lady Jill Biden is expected to remind everyone to embrace their inner child this holiday season, as it's decked out with toys and just a lot of child things, candy, ribbon, all this beautiful sights out there. So I hope you enjoyed taking a virtual tour of the White House there. I also want to take you live outside one more time to remind you of the impending severe weather that we have. Kauai. There is some clouds there right now, but starting tomorrow, you are under a H&N First Alert day. There could be some flooding, rains, and severe thunderstorms. Stay tuned to H&N.